everyone, this is Big Statement and we are back again, and here now we have another video for you, and this would just be some quick thoughts on the opening 2 episodes of Alien Earth. Now, Alien Earth is the latest entry in a long-running Alien franchise, which was of course started way back in 1979 with Ridley Scott's first and still best classic entry within the film and TV now series. Alien Earth debuted on the Hulu streaming platform on August 12, 2025, opening with its first 2 entries, and then later on the series will consist overall of 8 episodes. The story itself focused in the distant future, of course, and in terms of the timeline of the Alien franchise, is set after the movies, both Prometheus and Alien Covenant, but is placed a couple of years before the first Ridley Scott film. And when we see the opening scenes of this episode, it very much evoked the spirit and tone of that first entry, where we see the crew aboard the ship called Magnaut, and this was set by the Weyland-Yutani Corporation, the famous group that we know within the franchise, and they have set about these group of cyborgs or synthetic beings to go aboard a 60-year expedition to collect all sorts of alien organisms. And I can't deny that the aesthetic here was very good in recreating that same tone, desolate atmosphere that what we saw with the Ridley Scott films. Yes, it was a bit deliberate and a bit obvious, as is the case now with all of these rebooted or reinterventions of these classic franchises. But still, I felt it was very interesting here. We had a whole group of crew who, sadly, we never really got any time to really get to know any of them throughout the rest of the episode. So I thought it started off well, but I think where this episode went wrong is that we kept going back to the second group of characters, which involved the second corporation known as Prodigy. Because the setup here is that the galaxy has been set above ownership of certain companies. So Weyland-Yutani owns certain planets, and Prodigy, this new corporation, has jurisdiction over other worlds. And this Prodigy company, we saw a good amount of time with themselves building synthetic beings. This involves children who are terminally ill. So the design here was to retain a consciousness and integrate those consciousness into a new synthetic body with more superpowered abilities. And this is where we centered on the main character, I suppose, or protagonist, being known first as Marcy, who was terminally ill and then was integrated into a synthetic being known as Wendy. And we kept getting back these flashbacks of seeing how these synthetic people were constructed, various clips of their memories and their togetherness as they were being developed within the Prodigy Corporation. And I just wasn't interested in these characters at all. I would have far been more invested in the crew on the Magnaut spaceship, going back to that original film narrative. We do eventually get the emergence of the alien as it destroys the crew on the ship, and we had the cyborg, who was the last remaining character, and he wanted to retain the alien organisms that we see earlier on in the episode that they had been collecting all the way through. I did question why there wasn't some sort of contingency plan, as the crew are attacked by the alien and the ship is on a crash course for Earth. But again, the cyborg felt that he had to do everything he can to retain all of the specimens that were being collected. And this very much ties in with the mindset from the third film, where they're not as much caring about the overall risk that having the aliens potentially integrate and infect people on planet Earth. They just wanted to collect them overall for their own research, wanting to recreate and specify the overall alien substance. So we see the spaceship crash down on planet Earth, I guess it was, and this is where we later on draw the connection that Wendy's brother actually works within the crash site as the spaceship collides with the buildings, and he is the medic who, with the search and rescue team, obviously have to assess the ruins and look for any potential survivors. And once more, I wasn't really engaged in this whole dynamic between the connection between Wendy and her brother. I just didn't find any compelling material here, and it's something that this relationship looks like it's going to be sustained throughout the rest of the entire season. I have suspicions that we're going to find out later on that the brother is indeed some sort of synth or has synthetic genetics. If you notice throughout the second episode, he had multiple chances when he really should have been killed by the alien, but he managed to survive. So I think that could be a potential big reveal as we come towards the end of the first season. But once more, I wasn't really interested in that particular dynamic. It was good to see Timothy Oliphant as a synthetic named Kush, who is the chief scientist. And this is something that they've always done, whether it was with Lance Henriksen in the Aliens film, we had Michael Fassbender later on in Prometheus. They always seem to get this established actor to play the main synthetic doctor or supporting character. And he was fine in the role, and hopefully he can bring some more gravitas to the rest of the cast. I really didn't have any care for the rest of the other characters. They came across really as disposable, and I guess that was the main problem here, because overall the episodes didn't really carry the same intensity or suspense. In the second episode, when we focused much more on the alien really breaking out and assaulting more victims, there were a few gruesome scenes that carried some intensity, but again, nothing like the scary atmosphere that what we've seen previously. Now, I did wonder overall how this concept would expand into an overall series. The Alien franchise or movies, if you like, is very much a stalker horror story. The classic narrative of innocent human beings being in a trapped environment under the attack of an unrelenting force of evil. So how exactly do you spin that into a long-running series, unless you start delving into multitude of aliens? Whether the show will have a budget to consist of that, I don't know. But it seems that they're going to try and expand that concept by having multiple organisms, hybrids. We saw this to an extent with Alien Resurrection. We saw in the second episode within the crash site that they come across various different organisms, which to try and keep the dynamic interesting on the one hand, but on the others, it may potentially take the spotlight away from the main xenomorph alien itself. But the potential concept really here is how will they deal with the fact that an alien is now on a populated Earth? Will we see it go around breeding, and will we see other humans being converted into other alien organisms? If the show manages to sustain itself over multiple seasons, could we see the outcome of a world being dominated by an alien species, very much dystopian, and the narrative being flipped where we get a surviving band of humans trying to take down the alien race? Now, I don't expect to see that at the end of this first season. That's quite of a long way off, but it would be interesting to see if the show lasts long enough to delve into that potential dynamic. Now, in terms of the xenomorph itself, there were mixed results. I think it looked better when it was much more slower in motion, but anytime we see it leaping or running along corridors, the CGI was not very good, and once more it raises the issues of why in these modern day reboots or reinterpretations that the effects don't look as good as the original source material or movies that came out before. And this is again an overuse of CGI and also a lack of dedication to real practicality. I do understand that the design of the alien was practical, but in movements it just didn't look as intense or fearsome as what we'd saw before. It wasn't awful, I would say, but just didn't quite have that imposing nature again as what we saw with the previous films. So overall, the potential is there in terms of this to be a very compelling science fiction series. There are some concerns whether it will fall into the same traps that what we saw with the Halo science fiction series, where overall we get these concepts and ideas, but it's drowned away because we have no compelling characters to latch onto. Will it try to delve much more into the existential and consciousness narratives involving the cyborgs and the simps? While it could be interesting, that could also take away the main attention of what we're here for, is to see the overall xenomorphs and the alien monsters. So the show has to be careful not to lose its overall focus and narrative. And again, I'm still not convinced that it can sustain enough interest in the alien over a long set of episodes. The Alien as a franchise, I believe, has hit its ceiling. Like many of the other classic monster franchises from the likes of Predator and Terminator, I just feel over the years you can't really do anything else with them, and that's been reflected in the recent entries that we've seen within all franchises. So Alien Earth is going to have to do a lot in order to try and generate and sustain main interest in terms of the story that it's trying to tell. But in terms of these episodes, I would say not bad, a few flaws here and there, but with some way to go if it ever wants to come anywhere close to reaching the heights of the previous bests within the Alien franchise. So that's my overall thoughts and feelings on the opening first 2 episodes of Alien Earth. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you have any other further movies, television series, or any other topics within the pop entertainment and culture scene that you'd like to see me cover within the channel, then also let me know in the comments, and I will see if I can provide further commentary for you on that subject matter within the future. Please also hit like the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you very, very soon.